Vayachel, and he assembled. Exodus chapter 35. Then Moses assembled all the congregation of the children of Israel, and said unto them, These are the words which the Lord hath commanded, that ye should do them. 6 days thou shalt work, but the 7th day thou shalt have unto you to be holy, a Sabbath of rest unto the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work therein shall die. Ye shall kindle no fire throughout all your habitations on the Sabbath day. Again Moses spake unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing which the Lord commandeth, saying, Take from among you an offering unto the Lord. Whosoever is of a willing heart, let him bring his offering to the Lord, namely gold and silver and brass, also blue silk and purple and scarlet, and fine linen and goat's hair, and ram skins dyed red, and badger skins with shittim wood, also oil for light, and spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, and onyx stones and stones to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate. And all the wise-hearted among you shall come and make all that the Lord hath commanded, that is, the tabernacle, the pavilion thereof, and his covering, and his taches, and his boards, his bars, his pillars, and his sockets, the ark and the bars thereof, the mercy seat and the veil that covereth it, the table and the bars of it, and all the instruments thereof, and the showbread, also the candlestick of light and his instrument, and his lamps with the oil for the light, likewise the altar of perfume and his bars, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the veil of the door at the entering in of the tabernacle, the altar of burnt offering with its brazen grate, his bars and all his instruments, the laver and his foot, the hangings of the court, his pillars and his sockets, and the veil of the gate of the court, the pins of the tabernacle, and the pins of the court with their cords, the ministering garments to minister in the holy place, and the holy garments of Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons, that they may minister in the priest's office. And all the congregation of the children of Israel departed from the presence of Moses, and every one whose heart encouraged him, and every one whose spirit made him willing, came and brought an offering to the Lord for the work of the tabernacle of the congregation, and for all his uses, and for the holy garments. Both men and women, as many as were of free hearted, came and brought taches, and earrings, and rings, and bracelets. All were jewels of gold, and every one that offered an offering of gold unto the Lord. Every man also which had blue silk, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen, and goat's hair, and ram skins dyed red, and badger skins brought them. All that offered an oblation of silver and of brass brought the offering unto the Lord. And every one that had shittim wood for any manner of work of the ministration brought it. And all the women that were wise-hearted did spin with their hands, and brought the spun work, even the blue silk, and the purple and scarlet, and fine linen. Likewise all the women whose hearts were moved with knowledge spun goat's hair. And the rulers brought onyx stones, and stones to be set in the ephod, and in the breastplate. Also spice and oil for light, and for the anointing oil, and for the sweet perfume. Every man and woman of the children of Israel, whose hearts moved them willingly to bring for all the work which the Lord had commanded them to make by the hand of Moses, brought a freewill offering unto the Lord. Then Moses said unto the children of Israel, Behold, the Lord hath called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and hath filled him with an excellent spirit of wisdom, of understanding, and of knowledge in all manner of work, to find out curious works, to work in gold, and in silver, and in brass, and in graving stones to set them, and in carving of wood, even to make any manner of fine work. He hath put in his heart that he may teach others, both he and Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. Them hath he filled with wisdom of heart, to work all manner of cunning embroidered, and needlework, in blue silk, and in purple, scarlet and in fine linen and weaving, even to do all manner of work with subtle inventions. Exodus chapter 36. Then wrought Bezalel and Aholiab and all cunning men to whom the Lord gave wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, according to all that the Lord had commanded. For Moses had called Bezalel and Aholiab and all the wise-hearted men, in whose hearts the Lord had given wisdom, even as many as hearts encouraged, to come unto the work, to work it. And they received of Moses all the offering which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the sanctuary, to make it. Also they brought still unto him free gifts every morning. So all the wise men that wrought all the holy work came every man from his work which they wrought, and spake to Moses, saying, People bring too much, and more than enough for the use of the work which the Lord hath commanded to be made. Then Moses gave a commandment, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the host, saying, Let neither man nor woman prepare any more work for the oblations of the sanctuary. So the people were stayed from offering, for the stuff they had was sufficient for all the work to make it, and too much. All the cunning men, therefore, among the workmen, made for the temple 10 curtains of fine twined linen, of blue silk and purple and scarlet. Cherubims of broidered work made they upon them. The length of one curtain was 28 cubits, the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits, and the curtains were all of one size. And he coupled 5 curtains together, and another 5 coupled he together. He made strings of blue silk by the edge of one curtain, and the selvage of the coupling. Likewise he made of the side of the other curtain, and the selvage of the second coupling. 50 strings made he in the one curtain, and 50 strings made he in the edge of the other curtain, which was in the second coupling. The strings were set one against the other. After he made 50 taches of gold, and coupled the curtains one to another with the taches. So was it one tabernacle. Also he made curtains of goat's hair for the covering upon the tabernacle. He made them to the number of 11 curtains. The length of one curtain had 30 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits. The 11 curtains were of one size. And he coupled 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. Also he made 50 strings upon the edge of one curtain, and the selvage of the coupling. And 50 strings made he upon the edge of the other curtain, in the second coupling. He made also 50 taches of brass to couple the covering, that it might be one. And he made a covering upon the pavilion of ram's skins dyed red, and a covering of badger skins above. Likewise he made the boards of the tabernacle of shittim wood to stand up. The length of a board was 10 cubits, and the breadth of one board was 1.5 cubits. One board had 2 tenons, set in order as the feet of a ladder, one against another. Thus made he for all the boards of the tabernacle. So he made 20 boards for the south side of the tabernacle, even full south. And 40 sockets of silver made he under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. Also for the other side of the tabernacle, toward the north, he made 20 boards, and there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. Likewise towards the west side of the tabernacle he made 6 boards, and 2 boards made he in the corners of the tabernacle for either side. And they were joined beneath, and likewise were made sure above with a ring. Thus he did to both in the corners. So there were 8 boards, and there 16 sockets of silver, under every board 2 sockets. After he made bars of shittim wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards in the other side of the tabernacle, 5 bars for the boards of the tabernacle on the side toward the west. He made the middle bar to shoot through the boards from the one end to the other. He overlaid also the boards with gold, and made their rings of gold for places for the bars, and covered the bars with gold. Moreover, he made a veil of blue silk and purple, and of scarlet, and of fine twined linen. With cherubims of broidered work made he it, and made thereunto 4 pillars of shittim, and overlaid them with gold, whose hooks also were of gold. And he cast for them 4 sockets of silver. He made an hanging for the tabernacle door, of blue silk and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen, and needlework, and the 5 pillars of it with their hooks, and overlaid their chapters and their fillets with gold, and their 5 sockets were of brass. Exodus chapter 37. After this, Bezalel made the ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half long, and a cubit and a half broad, and a cubit and a half high, and overlaid it with fine gold within and without, and made a crown of gold to it round about, and cast for it 4 rings of gold for the 4 corners of it. That is, 2 rings for the one side of it, and 2 rings for the other side thereof. Also he made bars of shittim wood, and covered them with gold, and put the bars and the rings by the sides of the ark, to bear the ark. He made the mercy seat of pure gold, 2 cubits and a half was the length thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth thereof. And he made 2 cherubims of gold upon the 2 ends of the mercy seat, even of work beaten with the hammer made he them, 1 cherub on the one end, and another cherub on the other end. Of the mercy seat made he the cherubims at the 2 ends thereof. And the cherubim spread out their wings on high, and covered the mercy seat with their wings, and their faces were towards one another. Towards the mercy seat were the faces of the cherubims. Also he made the table of shittim wood, 2 cubits was the length thereof, and a cubit and the breadth thereof, and a cubit and a half the height of it. And he overlaid it with fine gold, and made thereto a crown of gold round about. Also he made thereto a border of an handbreadth round about, and made upon the border a crown of gold round about. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold, put the rings in the 4 corners that were in the 4 feet thereof. Against the border there were rings, as places for the bars to bear the table. He made the bars of shittim wood, and covered them with gold, to bear the table. Also he made the instruments for the table of pure gold, dishes for it, and incense cups, and goblets for it, and coverings for it, wherewith it should be covered. Likewise he made the candlestick of pure gold, a work beaten out with a hammer made he the candlestick, and his shaft, and his branch, and his bowls, and his knops, and his flowers were of one piece. And 6 branches came out of the sides thereof, 3 branches out of the candlestick out of one side of it, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side of it. In one branch 3 bowls, made like almonds, a knop and a flower, and another branch 3 bowls made like almonds, a knop and a flower. And so throughout the 6 branches that proceeded out of the candlestick. And upon the candlestick were 4 bowls, after the fashion of almonds, the knops thereof and the flowers thereof. That is, under every 2 branches a knop made thereof, and a knop under the 2nd branch thereof, and a knop under the 3rd branch thereof, according to the 6 branches coming out of it. Their knops and their branches were of the same. It was all one beaten work of pure gold. And he made for it 7 lamps with the snuffers, and snuff dishes thereof of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold made he it, with all the instruments thereof. Furthermore he made the perfume altar of shittim wood. The length of it was a cubit, and the breadth of it a cubit. It was square, and 2 cubits high. The horns thereof were of the same. He covered it with pure gold, both the top and sides thereof round about, and the horns of it. He made unto it a crown of gold round about, and he made 2 rings of gold for it, under the crown thereof in the 2 corners of the 2 sides thereof, to put bars in it for to bear it therewith. Also he made the bars of shittim wood, and overlaid them with pure gold. And he made the holy anointing oil, and the sweet pure incense, after the apothecary's art. Exodus chapter 38. Also he made the altar of the burnt offering of shittim wood. 5 cubits was the length thereof, and 5 cubits breadth thereof. It was square, and 3 cubits high. And he made unto it horns of the 4 corners thereof. The horns thereof were of the same, and he overlaid it with brass. Also he made all the instruments of the altar, the ashpans, and the besoms, and the basins, and the fleshhooks, and the censers, and all the instruments thereof, made he of brass. Moreover he made a brazen grate, wrought like a net, to the altar, under the compass of it, beneath, in the midst of it, and cast 4 rings of brass for the 4 ends of the grate, to put bars in. And he made the bars of shittim wood, and covered them with brass, the which bars he put in the rings on the sides of the altar, to bear it withal, and made it hollow within the boards. Also he made the laver of brass, and the foot of it of brass, of the glasses of the women that did assemble and came together at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Finally he made the court of the south side, full south. The hanging of the court were of fine twined linen, having 100 cubits. Their pillars were 20, and their brazen sockets 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. On the north side the hangings were 100 cubits, their pillars 20, and their sockets of brass 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And the west side also were hangings of 50 cubits, their 10 pillars with their 10 sockets, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. Toward the east side, full east, were hangings of 50 cubits. The hangings of the one side were 15 cubits, their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. On the other side of the court gate, on both sides were hangings of 15 cubits, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. All the hangings of the court round about were of fine twined linen, but the sockets of the pillars were of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver, and the covering of their chapiters of silver. And all the pillars of the court were hooped about with silver. He made also the hanging of the gate of the court of needlework, blue silk and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen, even 20 cubits long, and 5 cubits in height and breadth, like the hangings of the court. And their pillars were 4, and their sockets 4, of brass, their hooks of silver, and the covering of the chapiters, and their fillets of silver. But all the pins of the tabernacle and of the court round about were brass. Pekudi, accounts of Genesis chapter 38, verse 21. These are the parts of the tabernacle, I mean of the tabernacle of the testimony, which was appointed by the commandment of Moses for the office of the Levites, by the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. So Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made all that the Lord commanded Moses. And with him Holiab, son of Ahisamach, the tribe of Dan, a cunning workman and an embroiderer, and a worker of needlework in blue silk, and in purple, and in scarlet, and in fine linen. All the gold that was occupied in all the work wrought for the holy place, which was the gold of the offering, was 29 talents, and 730 shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. But the silver of them that were numbered in the congregation was 100 talents, with 1,775 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, portion for a man, that is, half a shekel, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for all them that were numbered from 20 years old and above, among 600,000 and 3,550 men. Moreover, there were 100 talents of silver, to cast the sockets of the sanctuary, and the sockets of the veil, and 100 sockets of 100 talents, a talent for a socket. He made the hooks for the pillars of 1,775 shekels, and overlaid their capiters, and made fillets about them. Also the brass of the offering was 70 talents, and 2,400 shekels, whereof he made the sockets to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the brazen altar, and the brazen grate, which was for it, with all the instruments of the altar, and the sockets of the court round about, the sockets for the court gate, and all the pins of the tabernacle, and all the pins of the court round about. Exodus chapter 39. Moreover, they made garments of ministration to minister in the sanctuary of blue silk and purple and scarlet. They made also the holy garments of Aaron, as the Lord had commanded Moses. So he made the ephod of gold, blue silk, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. And they did beat the gold into thin plate, and cut it into wires, to work it in the blue silk, and in the purple, and in the scarlet, and in the fine linen, with broidered work, for the which they made shoulders to couple together, for it was closed by the two edges thereof. And the broidered girdle of his ephod that was upon him was of the same stuff, and of like work, even of gold, of blue silk, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And they wrought 2 onyx stones, closed in ouches of gold, and graved, as signets are graven, the names of the children of Israel, and put them on the shoulders of the ephod, as stones for a remembrance of the children of Israel, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Also he made the breastplate of the broidered work, like the work of the ephod, to wit, of gold, blue silk, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. And they made the breastplate double, and it was square and hand-breadth long, and hand-breadth broad. It was also double. And they filled it with 4 rows of stones. The order was thus: a ruby, a topaz, and a carbuncle in the first row, and in the second row an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. Also in the third row a turquoise, an agate, and a hematite. Likewise in the fourth row a chrysolite, an onyx, and a jasper, closed and set in ouches of gold. So the stones were according to the names of the children of Israel, even 12, after their names, graven like signets, every one after his name, according to the 12 tribes. After they made upon the breastplate chains at the ends, of wreathen work in pure gold. They made also 2 bosses of gold, and 2 gold rings, and put the 2 rings in the 2 corners of the breastplate. And they put the 2 wreathen chains of gold in the 2 rings, in the corners of the breastplate. Also the other 2 ends of the 2 wreathen chains they fastened in the 2 bosses, and put them on the shoulders of the ephod, upon the forefront of it. Likewise they made 2 rings of gold, put them in the other 2 corners of the breastplate, upon the edge of it, which was on the inside of the ephod. They made also 2 other golden rings, and put them on the 2 sides of the ephod, beneath on the foreside of it, and over against his coupling, above the broidered girdle of the ephod. Then they fastened the breastplate by his rings into the rings of the ephod, with a lace of blue silk, that it might be fast upon the broidered girdle of the ephod, and that the breastplate should not be loosened from the ephod, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Moreover, he made the robe of the ephod of woven work, altogether of blue silk, and the whole of the robe was in the midst of it, as the collar of an habergeon, and an edge about the collar, that it should not rent. And they made upon the skirt of the robe pomegranate of blue silk, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. They made also bells of pure gold, put the bells between the pomegranates, on the skirts of the robe round about, between the pomegranates, a bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, round about the skirts of the robe to minister in, as the Lord commanded Moses. After they made coats of fine linen, of woven work for Aaron and his sons, and the mitre of fine linen, and goodly bonnets of fine linen, and linen breeches of fine twined linen, and the girdle of fine twined linen, and of blue silk, and of purple and scarlet, even of needlework, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Finally they made the plate for the holy crown of fine gold, and wrote upon it a superscription, like to the graving of a signet, Holiness to the Lord. And they tied unto it a lace of blue silk, to fasten it on high upon the mitre, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Thus was all the work of the tabernacle, even of the tabernacle of the congregation, finished. And the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord had commanded Moses. So did they. Afterward they brought the tabernacle unto Moses, the tabernacle and all its instruments, his taches, his boards, his bars, his pillars, and his sockets, and the covering of ram's skin dyed red, and the coverings of badger skins, and the covering veil, the ark of the testimony, and the bars thereof, and the mercy seat, the table, and all the instruments thereof, and the showbread, the pure candlestick, the lamps thereof, even the lamps set in order, and all the instruments thereof, and oil for light, also the golden altar, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the hanging of the tabernacle door, the brazen altar and his grate of brass, his bars and all his instruments, the laver and his foot, the curtains of the court with his pillars, and his sockets, and the hanging to the court gate, and his cords, and his pins, and all the instruments of the service of the tabernacle, called the tabernacle of the congregation. Finally, ministering garments to serve in the sanctuary, and the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and his sons' garments to minister in the priest's office, according to every point that the Lord had commanded Moses. So the children of Israel made all the work, and Moses beheld all the work, and behold, they had done it as the Lord had commanded. So had they done, and Moses blessed them. Exodus chapter 40. Then the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, In the first day of the first month, in the very first of the same month, shalt thou set up thy tabernacle, called the tabernacle of the congregation, and thou shalt put therein the ark of the testimony, and cover the ark with the veil. Also thou shalt bring in the table, and set it in order as it doth require. Thou shalt also bring in the candlestick, and light his lamps. And thou shalt set the incense altar of gold before the ark of the testimony, and put the hanging on the door of the tabernacle. Moreover, thou shalt set the burnt offering altar before the door of the tabernacle, called the tabernacle of the congregation. And thou shalt set the laver between the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar, and put water therein. Then thou shalt appoint the court round about, and hang up the hangings at the court gate. After thou shalt take the anointing oil, and anoint the tabernacle and all that is therein, and hallow it with all the instruments thereof, that it may be holy. And thou shalt anoint the altar of the burnt offering, and all his instruments, and shalt sanctify the altar, that it may be an altar most holy. Also thou shalt anoint the laver and his foot, and shalt sanctify it. Then thou shalt bring Aaron and his sons unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and wash them with water. Thou shalt put upon Aaron the holy garments, and shalt anoint him, and sanctify him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. Thou shalt also bring his sons, and clothe them with garments, and shalt anoint them as thou didst anoint their father, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office. For their anointing shall be a sign, that the priesthood shall be an everlasting unto them throughout their generations. So Moses did according to all that the Lord had commanded him, so did he. Thus was the tabernacle reared up the first day of the first month in the second year. Then Moses reared up the tabernacle, and fastened his sockets, and set up the boards thereof, and put in the bars of it, and reared up his pillars. And he spread the covering over the tabernacle, but the covering of that covering on high above it, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And he took and put the testimony in the ark, and put the bars in the rings of the ark, and set the mercy seat on high upon the ark. He brought also the ark into the tabernacle, and hanged up the covering veil, covered the ark of the testimony, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Furthermore, he put the table of the tabernacle of the congregation in the north side of the tabernacle without the veil, set the bread in order before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Also he put the candlestick in the tabernacle of the congregation, over against the table toward the south side of the tabernacle, and he lighted the lamps before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Moreover, he he set the golden altar in the tabernacle of the congregation before the veil, and burnt sweet incense thereon, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Also he hanged up the veil at the door of the tabernacle. After, he set the burnt offering altar without the door of the tabernacle, called the tabernacle of the congregation, and offered the burnt offering and the sacrifice thereon, as the Lord commanded Moses. Likewise he set the laver between the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar, and poured water therein to wash with. So Moses and Aaron and his sons washed their hands and their feet thereat, when they went into the tabernacle of the congregation, and when they approached to the altar, they washed, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Finally he reared up the court round about the tabernacle and the altar, and hanged up the veil at the court gate. So Moses finished the work. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. So Moses could not enter into the tabernacle of the congregation, because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Now when the cloud ascended up from the tabernacle, the children of Israel went forward in all their journeys. But if the cloud ascended not, then they journeyed not, till the day that it ascended. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel, throughout all their journeys.